Power Origins requires actors who can express emotion without heavy dialogue. This series is rooted in silence, tension, and slow-building pressure. Casting for this kind of story demands performers who can communicate fear, authority, and calculation through looks and body language. That is why the rumored and confirmed casting choices feel intentional. The producers are clearly looking for grounded performances rather than flashy personalities. This signals that Season 1 will lean more into realism than spectacle. Another key detail in the casting news is age and presence. Power Origins is about generations colliding. Younger actors must feel believable as future legends, while older actors must feel like survivors of a harsher era. Casting someone as Ghost's grandmother, for example, requires more than age accuracy. She must feel like someone who has seen too much and learned to live with it. The same applies to characters connected to young Ghost and Tommy. These roles need actors who can sell loyalty, fear, and ambition without forcing it. Casting also hints at how deep the show plans to go emotionally. When a series prioritizes strong dramatic actors, it usually means long scenes, heavy conversations, and character-driven conflict. This suggests that Power Origins will spend time exploring relationships instead of rushing to crime and violence. The show seems interested in showing how people become who they are, not just what they do. That approach requires performers who can hold the screen without constant action. Another important angle is how casting choices connect to the larger Power universe. Fans are always watching for visual and emotional resemblance. Young versions of known characters must feel familiar without copying. Casting actors who share subtle traits, posture, or energy with older versions helps maintain continuity. These decisions show respect for longtime fans while still allowing the new cast to create something original. That balance is difficult, and the early casting news suggests the creators understand that challenge. Casting announcements also shape expectations. When a show reveals strong names early, it builds trust. It tells the audience that this project is not an afterthought or filler series. Power Origins is being positioned as a cornerstone of the franchise. The care taken with casting supports that idea. These characters are meant to live across multiple seasons, not disappear after one storyline. In the end, casting news is storytelling before the cameras even roll. It tells us what kind of show Power Origins wants to be: serious, grounded, emotional, focused on character rather than noise. These new actors are not just filling roles, they are stepping into a legacy built over years. And if the casting choices deliver on their promise, Power Origins Season 1 could feel less like a spin-off and more like the foundation of everything that came after. Section 5 brings the focus back to the streets, but not the polished version fans are used to. This is the raw beginning, before power meant money and influence. Young Ghost and young Tommy are not kings yet. They are products of their environment, shaped by pressure, loyalty, and constant risk. Power Origins Season 1 uses this phase too. Strip away the legend and show the foundation of their bond, when survival mattered more than dominance. At this stage, Ghost and Tommy's relationship is built on necessity. They need each other to move, to think, and to stay alive. There is no betrayal yet, no jealousy over territory or vision. What exists instead is trust formed under stress. Growing up in the same environment forces them to read each other without speaking. That unspoken communication becomes one of their greatest strengths. Power Origins is likely to explore how this bond formed through shared danger, not ambition. The streets in this era are smaller but more dangerous. There are no massive organizations yet, only pockets of power controlled by fear and reputation. Young Ghost is already observing more than acting. He studies how people move, how respect is earned, and how mistakes are punished. Tommy, on the other hand, reacts emotionally. He leads with instinct, anger, and loyalty. This contrast is important because it explains how they later complemented and conflicted with each other. One planned, one acted. Together, they were unstoppable. Casting plays a major role in selling this early dynamic. The actors chosen for young Ghost and Tommy must feel believable as kids learning harsh lessons fast. Their performances need to show fear without weakness and toughness without confidence. This is not about being fearless. It is about being forced to grow up too soon. Power Origins will likely focus on moments where they make small choices that later define who they become. A decision to trust someone, a moment of hesitation, a reaction to violence they were not ready for. The streets also introduce early versions of the rules Ghost later lives by. Respect is everything. Silence keeps you alive. Loyalty has limits. These rules are not taught directly. They are learned through watching others fail. Young Ghost does not need speeches. He learns by seeing consequences. Tommy learns through pain. This difference creates tension even in their early friendship. They are aligned, but not identical. Power Origins is setting the stage for a future split long before it happens. This section is also about emotion. Young Ghost and Tommy still feel loss deeply. They still react to death, fear, and betrayal with visible emotion. Over time, those emotions will harden. Power Origins gives the audience a chance to see what was lost. The innocence, the laughter, the belief that loyalty could last forever. These moments make their eventual downfall more tragic because we understand how pure the bond once was by focusing on the streets before power. This section grounds the entire series. It reminds the audience that Ghost and Tommy did not start as monsters or masterminds. They started as kids trying to survive a world that did not care if they lived or died. Every empire begins somewhere, and for Ghost and Tommy, it began here in narrow streets, shared fear, and a friendship strong enough to change the future, and fragile enough to eventually break it. Section 6 moves into dangerous territory for longtime fans because it questions something the Power universe has always protected: canon. Power Origins Season 1 is not just filling gaps. It is reshaping how we understand events we thought were already settled. This is where the series takes the biggest risk and also offers the biggest reward by revisiting Ghost's early life and family roots. The show creates space to reinterpret his choices without erasing what came before. Rewriting canon does not mean changing major events. It means changing meaning. Ghost's actions in the original Power series were often seen as selfish, cold, or ruthless. Power Origins reframes those actions by adding context. When we see where his discipline came from, who taught him silence, and why control mattered more than emotion, his future decisions begin to feel less random. The story stays the same, but the reasons behind it grow heavier. One of the most important shifts comes from the inclusion of older generations. Ghost's grandmother represents a history that was never shown on screen before. Her presence suggests that some of Ghost's values were inherited, not learned on the streets. This does not break canon, it deepens it. The original series never said Ghost had no family influence. It simply never showed it. Power Origins uses that silence as an opening, not a contradiction. Another way the show may rewrite canon is by changing how we view Ghost's ambition. Previously, his hunger for legitimacy looked like ego. Now it looks like escape from a past filled with struggle, fear, and inherited pain. If Ghost grew up hearing warnings about the streets, watching elders suffer, or losing family to violence, his obsession with a clean future makes sense. He was not chasing power alone. He was chasing safety and control. Power Origins also has the chance to reframe Ghost and Tommy's split. Instead of seeing it as a sudden betrayal, the series can show that the divide was always there. Their values were shaped differently from the beginning. Ghost learned restraint and planning. Tommy learned loyalty and reaction. These differences did not appear later. They were built early. That knowledge does not change what happened between them. It explains why it was unavoidable. Canon is also influenced by perspective. The original Power series was told mostly through adult Ghost's lens. Power Origins allows us to see the world before his version of the truth-hardened memories. Trauma and fear shape how people remember events. This opens the door for moments that feel new without being false. Two versions of the same truth can exist without canceling each other out. By carefully expanding the past instead of rewriting outcomes, Power Origins respects the Power universe while strengthening it. Fans are not being told they were wrong. They are being shown what they never saw. This approach makes rewatches more powerful. Scenes from the original series will now carry extra meaning because the audience understands what Ghost was carrying with him all along. Section 6 proves that Power Origins is not a side story. It is a lens. It changes how we look at everything that came after without breaking what fans love. That balance is hard to achieve. But if done right, it turns canon into something richer, deeper, and far more emotional than before. The Power universe just cracked open a door nobody was expecting, a name, a bloodline, and a past that could change how we see Ghost forever. One casting reveal has quietly turned everything upside down, and it doesn't involve Ghost himself. It involves the woman who came before him. Power Origins Season 1 is not just about young Ghost learning the streets. It is about where he truly comes from. The reveal of Ghost's grandmother instantly adds weight to the story because it confirms that Ghost's journey did not begin with him long before he became James St. Patrick, before the suits. Before the ambition, there was a family shaping his future from the shadows. A grandmother figure in this world is not just background. In Power, elders carry secrets, survival skills, and painful lessons passed down through generations. This character represents history, struggle, and wisdom, and the hard way. Her presence suggests Ghost grew up hearing stories about sacrifice, power, and survival, stories that quietly molded his mindset. What makes this reveal so important is timing. Power Origins is set in a period where communities were ruled by fear, loyalty mattered more than money, and mistakes were rarely forgiven. A grandmother surviving in that era means she likely endured loss, violence, and betrayal. That experience could explain why Ghost always stayed calm under pressure and planned 10 steps ahead. He did not just learn from the streets, he learned from someone who survived them long before him. This shifts Ghost from being a self-made genius to someone shaped by deep family influence, even if he never fully realized it. There is also a strong chance that Ghost's grandmother knew things others didn't. She may have had connections, enemies, or unfinished business that still echoes into Ghost's future. Power has always shown us that the past never stays buried. If she was involved in street life, politics, or underground networks, those choices could quietly follow Ghost for years. This opens the door for hidden enemies, family curses, or even unspoken rules Ghost lives by without knowing why. Suddenly, his strict code, his obsession with control, and his fear of weakness make more sense. Most importantly, this reveal humanizes Ghost in a new way. We often see him as cold, sharp, and driven, but a grandmother figure brings emotion into the picture. She represents protection, discipline, and maybe even love in a world that offered very little of it. Whether she was kind or harsh, present or distant, her impact matters. Power Origins is setting up the idea that Ghost was built, not born. And with this one character, the show hints that his greatest strength may come from the woman who survived long enough to shape him, even before he understood who he was meant to become. The introduction of Ghost's grandmother is one of the most powerful and unexpected moves Power Origins Season 1 could make. This character is not being added for shock value or nostalgia. She exists to answer a question fans have quietly asked for years without realizing it. Where did Ghost really get his discipline, his patience, and his cold control? A grandmother in this world is not just family. She is survival in human form. She represents a generation that lived through pain, loss, and hard choices long before Ghost ever touched the streets. Ghost's grandmother matters because she lived in a time where weakness meant death. Unlike parents who are often busy surviving day to day, a grandmother carries memory. She remembers what worked, what failed, and what mistakes cost lives. That kind of knowledge shapes a child differently, even if Ghost never fully understood. Her lessons, they would still live inside him. Her warnings, her silence, her rules, and even her fear would quietly guide his thinking. This helps explain why Ghost never acted reckless, even when emotions ran high. He learned early that thinking ahead was the only way to survive. This character also suggests that Ghost's family history is deeper than we were led to believe. Power has always been about legacy. Even when characters deny it, introducing Ghost's grandmother confirms that his rise was not random. There may have been patterns in his family long before him, patterns of leadership, control, and strategic thinking. She may have known people connected to the streets, law enforcement, or underground systems, even if she tried to keep Ghost away from that life. The knowledge still existed in the home. And in power, knowledge is power. Another important angle is emotional influence. Ghost struggled with trust, love, and fear of losing control throughout the original series. A grandmother figure could be the emotional anchor he once had and later lost if she passed away early. Her absence could explain Ghost's emotional distance as an adult. If she was strict, her discipline could explain his obsession with order. If she was loving but broken, it could explain why Ghost chased a future that looked clean and respectable. This character adds emotional layers without needing big action scenes. Ghost's grandmother also represents the idea that the streets do not raise children alone. Families do. Even when parents fail, elders step in. Power Origins is using her character to ground the story in realism in real communities. Grandparents often protect children from chaos, even when they cannot fully escape it. That influence is quiet but lasting. Ghost becoming Ghost was not just about ambition. It was about upbringing, fear, lessons, and survival passed down through blood. By introducing this character, Power Origins is reframing Ghost's entire identity. He is no longer just a product of the streets or his own ambition. He is the result of generations surviving before him. His intelligence, restraint, and hunger for control now feel inherited, not accidental. Ghost's grandmother is not a side character. She is the foundation. And once that foundation is revealed, everything we thought we knew about Ghost begins to look deeper, heavier, and far more tragic. Ghost's story has always been told like a lone rise. But Power Origins Season 1 is quietly pushing a different idea. Bloodlines matter. Family history matters. And the choices made before Ghost was even born may have already decided the kind of man he would become. Section 3 of this story is not about action or street wars. It is about inherited power, silent influence, and the unseen threads connecting generations. Family bloodlines in the Power universe are never clean. Every family carries secrets, shame, and survival instincts passed down without words. Ghost's grandmother represents the first visible link in that chain. Her existence suggests that Ghost did not grow up in an empty house with no history. He grew up surrounded by stories, warnings, and unspoken rules. Even silence can teach lessons when elders refuse to talk about the past. Children learn that some truths are dangerous. That kind of environment creates cautious thinkers, not reckless ones. This also opens the door to hidden connections across the Power universe. Ghost may not have known every detail about his family, but that does not mean others forgot. Enemies remember names, old alliances remember blood. If Ghost's grandmother had ties to street figures, hustlers, or even people connected to power structures outside the streets, those connections could resurface years later. Power has always shown us that history waits patiently. A favor owed decades ago can turn into protection or betrayal in the present. Another important detail is how family influence shapes leadership. Ghost always acted like someone born to command. He listened more than he spoke. He watched patterns. He knew when to wait. Those traits do not appear overnight. They are learned behaviors. A household led by someone who survived chaos teaches control without needing violence. Ghost's grandmother may have ruled her space quietly, setting rules that could not be broken. Growing up under that kind of authority would naturally shape Ghost into someone who expects loyalty and obedience. This section also challenges the idea that Ghost chose power only because of the streets. What if power was always part of his family story? What if ambition was not rebellion, but continuation? Ghost may have believed he was building something new, but in reality, he could have been repeating a pattern, rising, controlling, protecting, sacrificing. These cycles repeat in families, especially ones shaped by survival. Power Origins is planting the idea that Ghost's destiny was already moving before he took his first step. Family bloodlines also explain Ghost's fear of exposure. He worked hard to erase his past, not just for himself, but to protect what came before him. If his family carried shame, danger, or unresolved conflict, disappearing into a clean image was survival, not ego. This adds emotional weight to his decisions later in life. He was not running from who he was protecting the ghosts of his family. By focusing on bloodlines and hidden connections, Power Origins expands the universe in a quiet but dangerous way. Ghost is no longer standing alone at the center of the story. He is the result of generations fighting to survive, adapt, and stay. Ahead, his power feels inherited, his flaws feel passed down, and once this truth settles in, Ghost's entire legacy becomes heavier, darker, and impossible to escape. Casting news is never just about names on a list, especially in a universe like Power where characters carry the weight of history. Section 4 shifts the focus from story ideas to real-world choices that shape how Power Origins Season 1 will feel on screen. Every casting decision sends a message about tone, realism, and how seriously the show is treating its own legacy. These new faces are not being brought in to decorate the story. They are being chosen to carry it.